Karen's voice sliced through the cul-de-sac like a chainsaw through butter. This land is HOA property, and you'll pay $23,000 for that eyesore of a shed. She bellowed, her jowls quivering with righteous indignation. Her target, a wiry, bespectacled man named Tom, stood his ground on the disputed patch of dirt, his fists clenched, his patience thinner than the legal deed he'd waved in her face for weeks. Karen, the self-appointed queen of Sunny Hills Homeowners Association, was a walking caricature of entitlement. Her polyester pantsuit strained against her frame, and her permed hair bobbed as she jabbed a manicured finger at Tom's modest shed, which sat on a sliver of land she claimed belonged to the HOA. The neighborhood watched from their porches, phones out, capturing every second of the showdown. Karen didn't care. She thrived on control, on the power to fine and bully until her neighbors bent to her will. But Tom wasn't bending. Not today. The feud began 3 months ago when Karen, on one of her infamous inspection walks, spotted Tom's shed. It was a simple structure, wooden, unassuming, built for his gardening tools. But to Karen, it was a personal affront, a blight on her vision of a pristine Sunny Hills. It's on HOA land, she declared, citing a vague clause in the community bylaws. Tom, a retired surveyor with a knack for precision, pulled out his property deed, which clearly showed the land was his. Karen didn't blink. Deeds can be wrong, she scoffed, slapping a $23,000 fine on him for encroachment and aesthetic violation. The number was absurd, pulled from thin air, but Karen's word was law, so she thought. Tom wasn't rich. He'd saved for years to buy his small home, a refuge after decades of hard work. The fine was a gut punch, a threat to his stability. But Karen's smugness, her refusal to listen, lit a fire in him. He wasn't just fighting for his shed. He was fighting for every neighbor she'd terrorized with her clipboard and her fines. There was Mrs. Lopez, fined $5,000 for a non-compliant mailbox. There was young Jamal, hit with $2,000 for parking his work van too long in his own driveway. Karen ruled Sunny Hills like a dictator, and Tom had had enough. He started digging. Nights were spent poring over HOA records, bylaws, and property maps. Tom's surveying background gave him an edge. He knew how to read land records, and he found the truth buried in county archives. The strip of land Karen claimed, it wasn't HOA property. It was his, deeded to his lot in 1987, long before the HOA even existed. Karen's claim was a lie, built on her arrogance and a shoddy survey from a decade ago. But Tom didn't stop there. He found complaints, dozens of them, from neighbors detailing Karen's abuses, fines, threats, even attempts to foreclose on homes for minor infractions. The HOA's bank account, fattened by these penalties, was funding Karen's pet projects, like the gaudy clubhouse she'd built as her personal palace. Tom took his findings to a lawyer, a sharp woman named Rachel who specialized in HOA disputes. "This is a gold mine," Rachel said, flipping through Tom's stack of evidence. "Karen's running a racket, and we're going to dismantle it." They filed a lawsuit against the HOA, naming Karen personally for fraud, abuse of power, and extortion. The $23,000 fine was the centerpiece. But Tom went bigger. He demanded compensation for emotional distress, legal fees, and most audaciously the HOA clubhouse itself, arguing it was built with ill-gotten funds. The neighborhood buzzed as the court date approached. Karen doubled down. strutting through sunny hills, issuing more fines to anyone who dared whisper about the case. "You'll regret crossing me," she hissed at Mrs. Lopez, who'd signed an affidavit supporting Tom. But the tide was turning. Neighbors began attending HOA meetings, something they'd avoided under Karen's reign. They questioned her, challenged her, and shared stories of her tyranny. Jamal, the van owner, stood up at one meeting and read a list of fines he'd paid, his voice shaking with anger. The room erupted in applause, and Karen's face turned purple. The courtroom was packed on the day of the trial. Karen sat at the defense table, her lawyer sweating beside her. She wore a garish floral blazer, her chin tilted upward as if she were above it all. Tom, in a simple button-down, sat calmly with Rachel, who laid out their case with surgical precision. She presented the deed, the county records, and a damning paper trail of Karen's fines, many of which violated state law. Witnesses Mrs. Lopez, Jamal, and others testified about Karen's harassment. One neighbor, a quiet retiree named Mr. Chun, recounted how Karen had fined him $10,000 for planting unauthorized roses, nearly driving him to bankruptcy. Karen took the stand, her voice dripping with condescension. "I'm protecting property values," she insisted, dismissing the neighbors as whiners who didn't appreciate her vision. But under Rachel's cross-examination, she crumbled. Why hadn't she verified the land records? Why were fines deposited into an account only she controlled? Why had she ignored complaints? Karen stammered, her excuses unraveling like cheap thread. The judge's face grew sterner with every word. The verdict was a bombshell. The judge ruled in Tom's favor, declaring the $23,000 fine invalid and ordering the HOA to pay his legal fees. But the real blow came when the judge addressed the clubhouse. Built with funds from illegal fines, it was deemed fruit of the poisonous tree. The court ordered it seized and transferred to Tom as compensation for his distress and the HOA's misconduct. Karen's jaw dropped, her empire collapsing in a single ruling. The neighbors in the gallery cheered, and even the bailiff cracked a smile. Karen tried to fight back. She stormed into the next HOA meeting, screaming about appeals and ungrateful peasants. But the board, emboldened by the ruling, voted her out as president. Her reign was over. The clubhouse, now Tom's, became a community hub. He opened it to everyone, no fees, no fines. Mrs. Lopez hosted salsa nights. Jamal ran a youth mentorship program. Mr. Chin planted roses around the entrance, their petals a quiet middle finger to Karen's legacy. Karen didn't go quietly. She lingered in sunny hills, muttering about lawsuits and revenge. But her power was gone, her fines exposed as a sham. Neighbors stopped fearing her. They waved at Tom as he tended his shed, now a symbol of defiance. Karen's $23,000 gamble had cost her everything: her authority, her clubhouse, her respect. She'd underestimated Tom, underestimated the community she'd tried to crush. Tom stood on his land one evening, watching the sun set over the clubhouse. It wasn't about the building, he realized. It was about justice, about proving one person could stand up to a bully and win. The neighborhood felt lighter now, freer. Karen's shadow was gone, replaced by roses and laughter and the hum of a community reborn. The end.